All right. Well, it looks like we are at 11 a.m. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Arthur. I'm the CASH chair. I'm also the executive director of facilities and planning at Palm Springs Unified School District. If you see me moving around, I'm trying to chase the sun from my office on giving me a big shine on my forehead. So bear with me on that. So I'd like to welcome first-time attendees and any new members. If you have a chance, please introduce yourself in the chat box and we'll see if we can say hello to you, and maybe in the chat box, just put a little bit about your company and what it does, or if you're a public sector member, what district or county office of ed you're with. So that would be great. And again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us on our monthly virtual meetings. I know our world has changed quite a bit from our in-person one. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So with that, if you have a chance, please check your inbox for your CASH weekly update, email newsletter, where each week we send you information on the latest news, events, workshops, conferences, professional opportunities, and a lot more. And I know you have a lot of things that come in your email box right now. We're just inundated with stuff. But if you have a chance, please click on that and open up, because there might be something that will be useful to you. So next slide. Also for your reference and information, CASH has created a COVID-19 resource page with all the information from state agencies, webinar content that we've been doing for the last almost year, news and articles and more, and any links to updates and everything. So a lot of resources on this page. You can go back and watch some of the past webinars that have taken place, kind of give you an idea what's happening in many different districts and how they're coping with COVID-19. So if you have a chance, click on that and just cruise and see what's there for you. All right, next slide. So I want to let you know about our upcoming event, which is our February web shop. That's not a webinar, but a web shop. And it's our part 2, and it's lease back practices in the field. So part 1 was covered on February 11th. And it was, we had, I don't know, half a dozen or more of our legal advisors on talking about the legal issues of the lease back and what's happening and the risk and non-risk associated with it. So it was a really good one. So tomorrow is going to be benefits and challenges of lease back construction in comparison to other construction avenues. So these are more you're going to see from our practitioners' viewpoint as opposed to our legal counsels. So it's also going to talk about using lease back to do and prepare their board. You need to give your board tutorial before awarding one on it, which I've done in the past and was really helpful, especially when things were happening in our first go round of lawsuits back almost, gosh, I don't know, 8-9 years ago. Also, how districts organize internally to accomplish compliance with the statutory requirements of the lease back. So that's going to be discussed. So registration and full details for tomorrow's web shop can be found on the CASH website. Just like everything else, it's all there waiting for you. So if you have a chance, it should be a very good web shop. The first one was great. So please take the opportunity to sign up for that. Okay, next slide. We've got our state agency update, and our first person is our Division of State Architect. And we have Ida Claire, who's coming on with us with the Division of State Architect. Good morning, Ida. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thanks, Julie. How are you?
Great, great. We're dealing with mid-70s and going into the low 80s this week. So it's a tough time of year here in the desert.
I bet. Well, we're experiencing quite beautiful weather up here in Sacramento too. So that's probably why you see the smile on my face. Anytime it gets anywhere near 70, my whole outlook changes. So lots of things to discuss this morning. May I share my screen, Caitlin, please?
You should be able to, Ida. Go ahead.
I see it. I see it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, sorry. Actually, that's the one I want to share. Okay, everyone can see my screen okay? All right, so providing an update on our leadership update. We have selected a Sacramento Regional Office Manager. We are not releasing the name yet because it's going through approval process through DGS, CalHR. There's a whole formal process that needs to happen. But we did hold interviews and have made a selection. So next month, I hope to be able to actually release that to you, if not sooner. We are holding headquarters principal structural engineer interviews this week. For Jim Hackett's position. That's actually occurring tomorrow. And so we anticipate that with both these individuals, they should be starting no later than April 1st, but hopefully a lot sooner than that. We are excited to get them in place and up and running. A little bit about our projects in plan review. We are busy, as you can see. We have a little over $1 billion in construction review or in plan review in statewide in February. Of course, you know, we are at the 24th of the month, so the month's almost over, but you can see how busy we are. Going into March and April, we are still really busy in March. Obviously, you can see that $737 million of plan review. And April, we're still taking applications, and we've, you know, it's still a bit early. 6 weeks puts us in just the first week of April. So April looks to be busy as well. Our Southern California region is really busy with a big chunk of our work. A little bit about our rulemaking. Whoops, sorry. There we go. Not sure what happened. Hold on, I apologize. Yeah, sometimes when I share, this is what happens. Anyways, I'll just update verbally and we'll go from there. So a little bit about our rulemaking. First, let me discuss IRN2. We've had a couple revisions to it, but there is a major revision coming out soon. It seems that when we reached out to get a legal interpretation of the bill, the AB 841 bill to our legal at the end of last year, there was a misinterpretation of the law. We met with the Energy Commission last week to discuss how we were going to proceed with interfacing with CEC on the projects, and CEC had alerted us that the requirements for carbon dioxide monitors were only for those participating in the grant program. And so we immediately reached out to legal and asked for another legal opinion at DGS, and we received that last night. Presently, the legal opinion that has been made is that it is definitely for only those participating in the program. I will let you know that the Energy Commission is also seeking a legal opinion on this. And so once we hear from the Energy Commission, we will proceed with issuing a clarification on that IR, which we hope will be this week, which will clarify that the carbon dioxide review that DSA will be doing will be for only projects that, or carbon dioxide monitor review will only be for projects that are in the grant program. And we are discussing with CEC how we're going to receive that information so that we can provide that collaboration. Also, the approval process through the CEC, that if you are seeking improvements through the grant program, whether or not they are required to be submitted to DSA. And of course, the parameters for those improvements are really based on whether any change out of systems will affect structural systems. If they do, and there's a structural improvements, then of course, you know, that also triggers access review, and obviously fire dependent upon the requirements for the project. So again, the clarification on the CO2 monitors is right now it's only for those in the grant program, and we will be issuing a clarification on IRN2 shortly. With regard to our rulemaking, We've been in discussions with Building Standards Commission to revisit the requirements for electric vehicle charging station. Right now, the proposal is to include at least one level 2 minimum charger when infrastructure is provided in the project. There is a bit of discussion moving forward to add more chargers dependent upon how many electric vehicle charging spaces are planned for in the infrastructure. So there will be another workshop in March. I know at my last report, I stated that there likely was not going to be another workshop, but because there are proposed changes that may be forthcoming, we will be having another workshop to discuss more chargers actually being installed when infrastructure is provided. We are still also considering CO2 monitors in Cal Green for projects that are new construction or modernization as part of the review process based on the studies that UC Davis has made and we've been aware of. We know indoor air quality is important. So we're going to be working with UC Davis on this proposal and seeing what is appropriate moving forward for Cal Green. And again, we will be able to discuss that at the workshop, our next workshop, which will hopefully be in March. So there may likely be changes coming to the CO2 monitor proposal that we are putting forward. And then, of course, we still have the other proposals that are on board with no change, the clarification on the calculations of how you calculate the area for shade trees on campuses, and then also, of course, clarification on references for VOC limits. Those are not real major proposals, they're just more clarity driven. I did have a conversation with Commissioner McAllister at the Energy Commission this week. He did let me know that with regard to building electrification for schools in the proposal for the California Energy Commission for the 2022 Energy Code, is that the prescriptive method and the energy budgets for the performance method are based on heat pump technology for water and HVAC systems, which encourages building electrification. But under the performance method, because it's based on the energy budget calculation, that if you actually improve the envelope further, you can actually perhaps include the gas or fossil fuels as part of the energy source, but it would require to increase the building envelope because the energy budget will be much more restrictive. So he did say that right now they are planning on their 45-day to be issued in March. So I do encourage you to go to the Energy Commission website, sign up for their notifications, so that you can be aware of what they are actually proposing and comment during the 45-day formal process, which, like I said, is anticipated to be in March. Again, are to receive notices on our Cal Green proposals for the 2022 code, please go to our website and subscribe to the emails. It's on the very first page, all the way at the bottom of our website. You'll see a subscribe link, and you'll want to subscribe either under architects and engineers or school districts, and you will receive notification on the Cal Green proposals. And then other than that, our public school construction collaborative first meetings March 12th. And if you are subscribed, you will receive notification on, if you're interested, how you can listen into the meeting, into our first meeting, where we will be discussing the proposals that DSA is putting forth for the 2022 code in both the Administrative Code Part 1 and also Part 2, CBC proposals for structural safety, in addition to Cal Green. And I believe that the structural safety program will also have a public workshop on their proposals in March after we meet with the public school construction collaborative. So other than that, that's the extent of my report, and I can take questions.
Well, I'm not seeing, okay, so I see a question here. Did I hear that CO2 requirements were only required on grant projects and that there are details being worked out for Cal Green requirements? So you may have, I think you answered that during there, but I think that was pretty well answered on that.
Yes, we did. You know, we received some misinterpretation on the law when it was first passed in the fall. And so we sought additional clarity. And so that is the determination that we have right now from our legal. Originally, our legal had provided other guidance. Further study has indicated otherwise, and CEC appears to be in alignment. So with that, we're just waiting for CEC's legal opinion as well.
Okay, great, great. And just a quick question, what are you seeing with, are we still on the 6-week track for appointments to get projects into DSA? Are you seeing throughout the state?
Yes, so it is still 6 weeks. We do encourage it 6 weeks in advance. You can see how busy we are. And so we are troubleshooting right now whether or not we move projects to other regional offices that are not so busy. As I said, the South area is really busy right now, but we do have the opportunity for overtime and also construct and contracting. So there shouldn't be any delays, but obviously with all your projects, if you have any questions or concerns, or, you know, to reach out to the regional managers or to myself, since we are working on the regional manager for Sacramento. That'll be soon. They're still on a rotating basis, as well as Oakland. But with Oakland, we are actually going for interim regional manager, just so that Dessa has the time. She's out on medical leave, and so she has the time to focus on her health. So that will be coming shortly as well. There will be an interim announced, hopefully shortly, probably within the next 3 weeks. So.
Excellent. I just want to say our district has taken advantage of the pre-meetings before submitting projects. And
hold on a sec, I need to shut my door. I apologize for that. I should have done that sooner, but it is a little noisy out there, and I want them to hear you. So go ahead.
In our district, we've got some major projects coming up. And so we've been able to take advantage of some of the pre-meetings down at the San Diego office. And that has helped immensely.
Good. Awesome. Thank you.
So, all right. Well, I don't see other questions. And so, Ida, thank you so much for sharing with us today. We really appreciate it.
All right.
Look forward to further hearing on the clarifications on that.
Yes.
All right. Then let's go ahead and go to our next slide. Our next agency is the California Department of Education. And we have Leslie Taylor coming up.
Hi, good morning. Leslie Taylor for CDE. John Gordon is enjoying a well-deserved vacation this week, so I'll be giving our update today. Awesome. We are deep in COVID land still. We're closely monitoring Assembly Bill and Senate Bill 86, which include the legislature's proposal for the $2 billion to support the return to in-person instruction for our high needs cohorts and elementary grades by April 15th. I'm sure everyone is well aware by this point that all of the current guidance from the California Department of Public Health and the administration can be found on the State of California's Safe Schools for All hub at schools.covid19.ca.gov. This is a place where LEAs can request technical assistance from the state team. They can find all of the relevant and ever-changing guidance. One new addition that's up on the hub is the crosswalk of the February 12th CDC guidance against the California guidance. It's highly aligned, and where there are differences, California's standards are generally a little bit more cautious. In our office, we've been receiving some questions on AB 841. I think Ida pretty much covered that, but we do also encourage you to sign up on the CEC's listserv so you can get updates on their regulations, their process for the 2 new programs that will be part of the school energy efficiency stimulus. Our team is hard at work on our 2021 nominations for U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon schools. We'll be wrapping those up this week, and we look forward to announcing those 5 schools along with all of our state level honorees with Superintendent Thurmond in the coming weeks. And that means that the 22 Green Ribbon cycle is right around the corner. We'll be here before we know it. There are district and school level awards that are available. And George Garcia is our program lead if you have any questions about what that program is about. Quick reminder that the comprehensive school safety plans must be updated and approved locally by March 1st. There is a compliance tool available from our school health and safety office. When I'm done, I'll drop a link in the chat so you can reference that if you'd like. And I will make a quick plug to follow us on Twitter at CDE Facilities, where we frequently post resources and webinars from interagency partners. One example, US EPA tomorrow is hosting a webinar that looks very interesting, ventilation and virus mitigation in schools. That's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. You can find the link on our Twitter. We will also announce some future job opportunities on our Twitter. Upcoming positions in the next couple of weeks include an education programs consultant on our policy team, who will be focused on school district organization, and also a division analyst. Finally, we always encourage LEAs to reach out to their field rep with any questions they may have. You can always find the current county assignment on our website. Even if that topic is kind of facilities adjacent, we'd be glad to connect you to the appropriate resources within CDE. For example, we just had a question last week about how to establish a CDS code for a new virtual school. So if your question is related, but it's not facilities, still come to us. We're glad to help you find the right way to direct you. And if your question is policy specific or in this kind of gray area, you're always welcome to reach out to me directly. We'd be glad to point you to the right resource. And I think that's all we've got for today.
Leslie, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have you here today. You did a great job. Great. Okay, our next state agency update is the Office of Public School Construction, and Lisa Silverman is going to give us an update today. Lisa, are you here? There you are. Hey.
I am here. How are you?
Hey, great. How are you doing?
Figure out the camera view. I'm in the office today. I'm doing well, and yeah, the updates we have today is basically it's going to be a short meeting, which is awesome. But we wanted to highlight that the unfunded approvals that obviously we had very limited unfunded approvals. We didn't bring projects last month, but we wanted to highlight that we are actually bringing 70 approvals this month. So we'll be asking for the board to approve over $213 million in unfunded approvals this month. So that's pretty significant. So that's January and February. And those are considering obviously with the new CCI adjustments as well. And we have one action item for the board to consider, and that's actually for a facility hardship request for Pioneer Union Elementary School. And that's a consideration for $239,000 for a design cost for that facility hardship project. And that unfortunately, Pioneer Union Elementary School, they were impacted by the North Complex fire. So we were fortunate enough to work with some folks out with Joe Dixon and Department of Education and SFC to navigate these folks through the facility hardship program. So we're happy to present this item to the board tonight. So, and some additional news we would like to share. We actually closed some additional virtual trainings. One was Friday, overview of the school facility program. And we actually have the 3 list on Monday, but we have 4 additional virtual trainings that we're announcing. So look forward to the facility hardship and how to enter the seismic mitigation program. So that's March 16th. And so looking forward to that. That's on a Tuesday. And an overview of OPSC online, and that's March 19th. That's on a Friday. And then 2 more announcements coming towards the end of the month, and we're hopefully have those announcements out by the end of the day today. So again, that's March 26th and March 30th. And I'll wait for those announcements again to be published by the end of the day. And then again, the priority funding process will be also announced in April, and career tech education reservation of funds. So we're on a pretty steady pace with this virtual training. So again, looking forward to having more announcements in the future. So we'll probably be hitting another 2 more in May as well. So again, we're on this aggressive pace for this virtual training. So if you didn't sign up, please sign up. Again, it's a good overview of some of the program. And again, an opportunity for you to know what's going on and how to access the program. And the online feature, again, we want to encourage as many folks to get acclimated with the online features that we have, because we're going to be rolling out a lot more opportunities as we move towards this virtual world that we live in. And other announcements, if you haven't heard, we wanted to share that Senator Wilk is, although we did enjoy working with Senator Wilk, he has moved on. So we actually have a vacancy on the Senate side. So we wish him well, and we want to thank him for working with the board for a number of years. And there also is a spring bond sale coming up in the next few weeks. So we're excited about that. And so we'll be bringing some apportionments. If all goes well with the spring bond sale, we should hopefully have enough funds at the end of the month, the end of March, to bring some apportionments in April. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'm not seeing any in the chat box here, but great report, all good news.
Great news, yeah. Money's good.
Very good. All right, well then, Lisa, thank you so much for today and for sharing with us. And we will move on. Next slide, please, to the Cash Legislative Regulatory and Maintenance Networks updates. And we have Nancy Chairs Espinosa and Ian Padilla, who are going to be sharing with us this morning about what's going on. Nancy, are you up first?
I am. I can't get full screen for some reason. Can you guys see me? Am I coming through okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So very good to see you all. Happy Wednesday. It is finally Wednesday. It is barely Wednesday. As you can see, a little bit of sunshine is doing us all quite a bit of good here in Sacramento and elsewhere. I have a robust update for you guys. First, let's talk about bill introductions. This past Friday was the deadline for members of the Assembly and Senate to introduce their bills for consideration this year. While we are still developing priorities for CASH and other organizations, what I do want to present to you are the overarching themes that we are seeing. And some of these are, of course, in response to what we've been living the past year. So we are seeing a lot of bills, including one bond that pertains to broadband expansion. Many of these bills, including the bond, are specific to broadband for educational purposes, so to school sites or intended for students. But many are not. You know, our rural representatives, I think, are doing a great job of educating others about the constraints under which their constituents operate. So there's a great deal of energy around providing financial support for the expansion of broadband. Another theme that we are seeing is decarbonization. So moving ourselves off of fossil fuels. If you've heard anything about this topic lately, you probably heard about AB 33 by Assemblymember Ting, which would have prohibited new schools from being built using a natural gas system. So it would have been all electric. We do have verbally from the author's office a statement that they do not intend to move that bill forward this year. But again, his was not the only bill on this topic. There was so much interest that we are going to engage in this issue and in this conversation this year regardless. Bonds, there are bonds for just about everything you can imagine proposed this year. Of course, the ones that we are most interested in are the two that are specific to school facilities, and we've mentioned those before, AB 75 by Mr. O'Donnell and SB 22 by Mr. Glazer. There's been no change in the past month, as expected. Those bills will start to change as they move through the legislative process. The AB 75, actually both of those bills have hearing dates in the education committees in their respective houses, and I apologize, I don't have those hearing dates on me right now. But it is not expected that the bills will be substantially amended in the first house. So as negotiations continue really through the entire process, the substantive changes to the bills are expected to be made when they go to the second house. So we don't expect major announcements about either of those vehicles anytime soon. We normally don't talk to you about resolutions, which are technically bills, but they don't make statutory changes. But there were a couple that I thought might be of interest, and I wanted to bring them to your attention. So the Assembly has decreed tomorrow, February 25th, introduce a Girl to Engineering Day. And I know we have a lot of engineers out there. So if you are one, if you know one, consider introducing a Girl to Engineering tomorrow. And March 7th has been declared the Women in Construction Week. So let's celebrate women in construction and maybe do something to try to get more women in the construction industry. And let's see, with that, I'm going to move on to budget. So while we are busy reading thousands of bills, we have also been monitoring a very robust schedule of Assembly budget committee hearings, budget subcommittee hearings in particular. To give you an example, the Assembly Budget Subcommittee number 2 on Education has held about 6 or 7 of its 8 planned hearings for this time of year to review the governor's proposals and to put forth some of its own. So typically these hearings will be informational only until they receive what we consider the real numbers, right? The real fiscal condition of the state in the May revision. But this time, because the governor requested some early action items, the Assembly yesterday took action on a package of bills intended to provide economic relief. And one, actually, they did not vote on the education-related bill, which I'll go into in greater detail. But they do indicate that they may move that forward. So these discussions in the subcommittee phase, they inform the negotiations, they give us some insight publicly into the negotiations, and they help shape the proposals themselves. The Department of Finance has released what we call trailer bill language, the actual language of the governor's proposals. So all of these discussions that the subcommittees are having and that stakeholders, the input that we as stakeholders provide, all shape what that language ultimately says. So of these budget trailer bills, the most important that we are watching right now is a package of bills called AB 86 and SB 86, which, as the name implies, those are a deal between the Assembly and the Senate, a joint proposal, which are really a counter to the governor's school reopening grant program proposal that he presented at the end of 2020, beginning of this year. So the structure of the legislature's proposal is really the same. So it includes $2 billion for reopening costs and $4.5 billion for learning loss costs, and that's a multi-year expenditure. With respect to vaccinations and federal aid, the two proposals treat those things a little bit differently. So the legislature's proposal addresses vaccinations and accounts for $6 billion in federal school reopening funds within the structure of its proposal, while the administration addressed vaccinations separately. And I think at the time, they didn't know for sure whether the federal funds were coming, so they couldn't have addressed them. The legislative proposal requires counties to set aside vaccines for all school staff who are working in person. Subsequent to the introduction of this bill, the governor ordered 10% of the state vaccine supply to be set aside for educators. There have been, I guess some communication issues between the state or the governor's intention and what counties were actually doing. We've seen in a couple of different ways, the governor has signaled his intention that educators have priority for vaccines. But for various reasons, it's not what's actually been happening on the ground. Counties do have a great deal of discretion as to how they how they implement those priorities, be they from the state or the federal government. Generally speaking, they prefer age-based over sector-based criteria. It's easier to administer and they're able to go faster. And I do want to note that neither of these proposals, the governor's or the legislature's, makes vaccination of teachers and school staff a condition or a requirement for school reopening. And that is a key point that, some folks out there take issue with, and there's a lot of confusion. So I want to be really, really clear. Vaccination is sort of happening on a parallel track to the other criteria, which we're seeing are allowing schools to reopen in March and April. Really the primary key difference between these two proposals is that the governor wanted schools to be reopened by February 15th. The legislative proposal, with several caveats that I'll go through, requires them to open by April 15th. The governor responded immediately after these bills were introduced and said that they don't go far enough, fast enough. So that is the governor's current position, which he has reiterated once or twice since then. But again, negotiations are ongoing. And so specifically, AB 86 includes a phased return to in-person instruction. It would require LEAs to offer in-person instruction via cohorts. So we're using this bubble concept from public health to specified at-risk populations, and I'll go through what those are, regardless of the COVID-19 tier, which means in purple, by April 15th. So that's these specified populations, which I'll go through. And the bills would require LEAs to offer in-person instruction by April 15th to all students in grades TK6 if the LEA is in a county that is in the red tier or lower. So there's the specific kind of at-risk groups, and then there's everyone in TK6. And I will go through what those at-risk groups are. So the bill actually says, as a condition of receiving those learning loss funds, your part of the 4.5 billion, you have to do the following. So beginning no later than summer of 2021, which we're planning now, and continuing through summer 2022, you must offer supplemental instruction and support to pupils who are on free or reduced price lunch, or eligible for it rather, English learners, foster youth, homeless, individuals with exceptional needs, which I believe is special education, students at risk of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, disengaged pupils, which is a growing issue in a lot of school districts that are doing distance learning, students who are below grade level, and other students identified by staff who are at risk. You would also be required to provide social emotional support and meals and snacks for students who are participating in the supplemental instruction. So those are our special populations. The bill also specifies allowable uses for the learning loss mitigation funds, and those are extended instructional time, implementation or expansion of learning supports like tutoring, small group instruction, instructional materials, educator training, integrated pupil supports. So that really gets to the non-academic side. So provision of health, counseling, mental health services, access to meal programs, before and after school programs, community learning hubs, which to me means we're actually taking our services off campus and providing them somewhere more accessible to students. Many folks are doing this by putting Wi-Fi on a school bus and parking that, somewhere closer to kids. There's lots of ways to do it. Diagnostic assessments, training for school staff on social, emotional, and academic support. All of those things are allowable uses of the learning loss mitigation funds. One of the reasons I detail those for you, realizing we don't really focus on the operational side, is that I just want to be clear to folks that many of our LEAs will be creating new programs that take place all across our facilities, and some of them maybe even off campus. So this is a time to really remain engaged with your local decision makers, because you may be seeing some new programs that you've not seen before, that frankly, your students haven't needed before. And learning loss mitigation in particular is something that we do expect is going to be a multi-year project. A couple more points on these proposals. AB 86 grandfathers existing LEA reopening plans that have been adopted already by your board, and bargaining agreements. So if you've got those in place already, even if you haven't actually opened, AB 86 would grandfather those in. And this is an instance where the legislature got to learn from the bad experience that the governor had, where he put out his proposal and some new guidance, which actually could have forced schools that were already open to close. So they've learned, they're grandfathering in those people who already have their plans in place. There's a similar situation here with an odd result. So testing is another hot topic, that is namely asymptomatic COVID-19 testing of students and staff. So the bill creates a disparity in which schools with reopening plans in place, again, by that March 15th date, regardless of whether they've actually opened, will not be subject to what can be a costly requirement to conduct asymptomatic COVID testing of students and staff, while those who adopt their plans after that date will be subject to that requirement. And as a reminder, the CDPH guidance actually requires weekly asymptomatic testing of staff and students open in the purple tier. A little, less frequent if you're not in purple, but the cost can certainly add up pretty quickly for that. So that's a great level of detail on what is currently just a legislative proposal. I want to be really clear. We're not living under this yet. It's law. It's not law. But because there are so many similarities between the governor's proposal and the legislature's proposal, I think those are the types of things that we should expect to see. Negotiators on all sides are telling us that they think they're close. So we are hoping to hear something soon. And outside of this, those of you paying attention, of course, in your own communities and across the state through the press are seeing that because we have at least the last wave behind us, many school districts are announcing that they are opening in March and April, offering in-person services. And of course, folks who want to remain on distance learning can do that. So lots of things are happening at the same time in the school reopening world. And we will continue to follow what's going on here at the Capitol and keep you updated. With that, I will gladly hand it over to my colleague, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Very, very good and comprehensive update. A lot of things going on right now, as you can tell. I am going to give a cash maintenance network update, and after that, I'm going to move right into a school energy coalition update. But before I start that, I wanted to acknowledge what Ida Claire, the state architect, announced in her presentation this morning. About the DSA IRN2 and it being revised to make some important clarifications. And so we really appreciate working with DSA and other members of, other stakeholders that were pretty concerned about this. That clarification will go a long way. I already have some of my colleagues who represent other school organizations asking me what's going on, and they're very happy about this. Everyone is definitely ready to get that information out. I would say that the issue of CO2 monitors will continue to be a significant one. This is an important clarification, but there has been referred to. It's part of the Cal Green Code, and that implementation continues to proceed. So we'll cash maintenance network will be involved in that as well. But more broadly, as we go, as there's a lot of focus on ventilation in this era in terms of COVID-19, but also just more generally in terms of creating healthy learning environments, CO2 monitors will be an important piece of doing that. When I've talked to schools, as well as some of my colleagues who had some concerns, no one was ever against CO2 monitors. Everyone knows that you can't fix what you can't measure. It was more about how we access it and some of the confusion over that. So again, I'll stop there on that, but we will certainly get that information out, and it's good news. I will say that, again, we Cash Maintenance Network plans to do workshops, web shops on the CO2 issue because it's, again, a very important issue going forward. Also quickly, as Nancy told you, we're looking at bills right now. I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of bills, but there's a few that I will refer to that will be important for the maintenance, school maintenance community. One, Assemblyman Jones Sawyer is introducing a bill. It's AB 599. Currently, it's not. It's a different. It has different language in it, but it will be amended to be essentially a Williams cleanup bill. So some of the issues for school facilities will be, if you remember, that universe of schools to be that need to be inspected was frozen at 2012. That was quite a while ago. So that will be a piece. And there will be some other pieces that we'll be looking into and working with the author on. Also, I noticed just quickly, AB 544 by Mr. O'Donnell, Assemblyman O'Donnell. Looks like it has some things to do, school sites, information about school sites. I wouldn't call it an inventory, but we're looking more into that. But it's just the kind of things that the maintenance network folks will be interested in. And the final bill is AB 377, and that has to do with stormwater. It's a significant new requirement. It would require end of pipe sampling, which is a significant new piece of sampling. So we're looking at that as well. And also continuing to work on the stormwater permit, which you've heard me talk about, although not of late. The implementation timeline, like a lot of things, has been moved to the end of the year. So I wouldn't say we have a whole lot more time, but it's a little bit more breathing room given everything else that's going on. The final thing under the maintenance network is that we're very happy to see that our local assembly person, Doris Matsui, has written a significant letter to the Biden administration highlighting the significant need for adequate ventilation in schools, and that it should be included. Funding and programs should be included wherever is appropriate, whether it be in the energy bills or the infrastructure plan that's being discussed in other locations. So we obviously are in full support of that, and glad to have that support to highlight this important issue. With that, I'm going to move quickly to the School Energy Coalition. Also working on AB 841, and was very concerned about the CO2 monitoring pieces on that. I will say, thank you, Caitlin, for the switching the slide. SEC, in addition to CASH, SEC's expertise and kind of long history in these issues and working with the CEC has been important. They are well respected by folks over there, so they're very active on this. And also we're reviewing legislation, of course, for the School Energy Coalition. Nancy mentioned AB 33, very significant piece. We were, ramping up to deal with that bill, but we're glad that they're not moving forward with it. But as Nancy indicated, decarbonization, electrification, those are significant issues. And so there are other bills, but even if they weren't, it's in proposals and regulations, and it's a significant piece. And so we, CASH, Maintenance Networks, the School Energy Coalition will do a lot of focusing on that. That's kind of our framework as we go out and look at these bills. There's quite a few of them. So we are engaged in doing that. I think, the last piece is in terms of, I've talked about the CO2 monitoring piece and some of the issues around the IR, but I did want to remind folks that CASH is fully engaged and the maintenance network is fully engaged with the SEC, trying to highlight issues that we think would make it difficult or more unlikely that schools would try to access this funding. We certainly want them to. And so we have a letter on that. We've posted that. It's available. That can help you kind of ferret out some of the issues. If you want to talk to the CEC yourself, a lot of folks are doing that. We have both technical issues as well as some more broad issues that we outline to the CEC. And we intend to meet with them and follow up on these issues in person, or more likely in a Zoom format. So with that, I'll close my or I'll end my presentations unless there's any or my comments unless there's any questions.
So Ian, actually there are. Can you just do a quick review of the bill names that you went over?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't even. Yes. The first one, the Williams cleanup bill, is AB 599. Okay. Again, don't even read it yet. Currently, it's a community college bill, but it will be gutted and amended to enter this. There was a drafting error in the when it was introduced, so there's that one. AB 544 was the O'Donnell bill, the site information about sites. We're still diving into that one. And then the Stormwater Bill was AB 377. And just to let you know, without going too far into that, that one is sponsored by the Coast Keepers. That's the environmentalist side of this continuum of discussion. So this measuring at the end of pipe, you could say, is a more significant requirement than even the board is currently talking about with some of the things that we're talking with them about. So it's a significant piece. I'll be diving into that a little bit, or quite a bit actually. But anyway, yeah, there are those. And of course, AB 33, which again, we understand the author Ting is pulling back on, but the issue of decarbonization and those types of issues remain and are kind of a big framework for a lot of the other bills that are out there. AB 33 kind of went just right at the issue. No building, or just no, you can't use gas, basically. And so one thinks maybe the gas guys got to him, but it's not a dead issue. So.
Okay, and I know Tova asked, you said the Williams issue was a little too early to talk about. She asked, will there be funding with the Williams items?
Not even sure, but contact me with your concerns, because it's a Williams bill. There's some obviously there's existing language, but it's a discussion about Williams that we've needed to talk. How much we can discuss about those things, I'm not sure yet. I haven't even seen the language, but it's a good question. And yeah, we're aware that this is an opportunity. Just as an aside, the County School Facilities Consortium has been interested in this kind of issue. This bill has been introduced before a couple of years ago, but it didn't move forward. They were involved in it, so it is a big county issue. So both they as well as Cash will be taking a look at this.
And Ian, one thing, School Energy Coalition is keeping an eye on what's happening with the net metering.
Yes, I didn't want to take too much time. Absolutely. A couple of bills been introduced, and the School Energy Coalition just did yesterday a webinar on this issue, and not on the bills, but on the issue. That was one of the founding issues of School Energy Coalition, even before Prop 39 and all that, and continues to be a significant issue. So absolutely, that's one of the first frames that will do, kind of reminding us how significant it is for schools. So yeah, I would say there's, I think, 2 or 3 relatively major bills on that. So we'll be looking at that and engaging with that for sure. Not only for School Energy Coalition, obviously for Cash as well, should it be a broad application. So.
Right, big concern on that. I know for a lot of districts who are working on solar part of what you've done is calculated on that, and
that's the incentive, right? You took a risk for some of that incentive. I got it, but I really appreciate that input. I've heard that a few times. Yeah, so I appreciate that. We'll add that in. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move on to the next one. We have Californians for School Facilities with Dave Walrath. Dave, are you there?
Dave is here.
Great.
As he's hitting his buttons. Never sure when the questions will end. Thank you, Julie. California School Facilities. First, let me touch on the federal stimulus. It is going forward. The House will vote on it this week, send it to the Senate. Could be some issues in the Senate because of using reconciliation. There are specific rules for what can or cannot be in a reconciliation bill. The goal is still to have this completed by March 15th. As far as school funding, to the best of our knowledge, there are no issues being raised on that piece of the stimulus bill. So that is going well. The issues that are being raised are more on including minimum wage increase, also some questions about the amount and allocation formula for state and local government support, but that's not carrying forward to the schools piece. So still looking very positive. We'll give you an update on that. After that is completed, we really become much more involved on the infrastructure proposals. And we'll be starting our monthly meetings for California for School Facilities, second Tuesday of every month, on trying to both update, do advocacy, and work with our federal partners on those infrastructure bills. Right now, the proposal is approximately $100 billion for schools nationally, school repair, new construction, et cetera. Very significant funding over a 5-year period. Just as we have been talking about the effects of climate change and the response to climate change, we have every expectation that when we start talking about the infrastructure legislation, there will be major climate change provisions within that. It is consistent with the President Biden's executive orders, his campaign, that there be greater emphasis and action to mitigate climate change. Just as in California, we've been talking about natural gas or fossil fuels. I expect that'll be an issue within the federal, the whole green code. And I do follow up and encourage everybody to look at the CEC website, get their notifications. The California Green Code 2022 will be major, and many of the pieces that will be discussed in that probably will be discussed at the federal level too. So we will be looking at, as California's School Facilities, intervention at the federal level to address some of the concerns or issues we might have with unduly burdensome requirements regarding climate change and school facilities. We need funding for it. We need time to prepare a ramp up, not a automatic jump to the top of the plan on immediate Z&E. Whatever is done needs to be phased in with, as I said, funding. So those are the high points. One last comment. State auditor came out with an audit report yesterday that effectively said at the current pace of meeting California's climate goal for 2030, it is highly unlikely the state will make it. This to me is a red flag that there will be more pressure on schools, and particularly repair, modernization, new construction, to significantly reduce use of non-renewable resources. So with that quick summary, state issues are becoming federal issues and vice versa. Any questions?
Wow. That is interesting, Dave. More.
I know, yeah.
It is what it is, right? I mean,
Yep.
Forewarned is before armed, so.
Which is why we're going to be asking for a lot of help in lobbying our federal delegation on our issues.
Yeah, makes sense, So Dave, thank you so much for that. Let's move on. And Jeff Becker, who is our CASH Vice Chair and also the Senior Director of Facilities at the Office of Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. Can you share a little bit about the annual conference, Jeff?
Sure, Julie, and good afternoon, everyone. So last month, I reported out that we have moved the dates, the rescheduled dates of the annual conference to June 28th to 30th, and we're still located in Palm Springs. So hopefully that piece of this is not news to you, but do make a note of those dates. The conference schedule itself, all of the education sessions that we had planned for March are being moved over to the June date. So The schedule will look the same, and we still have a very robust schedule with great education sessions. So if you have not already done so, please go to the CASH website and register for the conference today. And we also have some sponsorship opportunities available for you folks in the private sector, and trade show exhibitor booths available. And of course, you can find more information on that on the CASH website. And then lastly, both of the hotel blocks have sold out already, but there are numerous hotels that surround the area that do have space available. And again, the theme of this announcement is you can find information for that on the CASH website. So we're excited about the annual conference. The rates in Riverside County are going down. Vaccines are happening. So we're really looking forward in about 4 months of being able to get together in person. So Julie, I will turn it back over to you.
I thought I hit that button, but it didn't hit. So great. Thank you, Jeff, so much for sharing that. That's great news. It's very exciting, and Riverside County is trending in the right direction right now. So we're all feeling very excited about the possibility of that. So great. Next up, we've got something a little different that's going to be really kind of neat. We have a school district briefing COVID-19 reopening experience, and we've got Nate Holt with us. He's going to talk about their reopening experience and give us an update on that. Nate, are you here? All right, Nate, I see you're unmuted.
There we go. I'm sorry, Julia. I apologize. I'm jumping in and out of cabinet. So I just turned off cabinet. The executive cabinet is jumping here real quick. So I apologize.
Well, not a problem. Glad to have you with us, Nate.
Yeah, no problem at all. Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. Just a real brief, what Compton has been challenged with over the past, I guess, 12 months. So just to kind of get a backstory, you know, we engaged this pandemic piece last year, about 3 weeks coming up in March. So in most cases, most school districts, especially on the facility side and sometimes in the maintenance side and the operations, usually they were working from home. So we haven't left. So just to kind of give you a preview of that, I have not been working from home since day one, since this pandemic started. So if I look like I've aged a couple of years, I have. So real quick on Compton's experience with the pandemic. Once the pandemic was announced and the district was going through its process of determining what we're going to look like moving forward before determining if and when school was open, we wanted to look at a couple of things over the course of the months moving forward. So what Compton's been focusing on as far as looking at possible reopening is that we've been focusing generally on our HVAC as far as ventilation. We were looking at duct cleaning. We were looking at all those components that were airflow related that we felt we would be challenged on, not so much from a parent's point of view from the external, but also from our teachers union, which has an invested interest as far as what the schools look like when they came back. We also looked at, as a district, the superintendent requested that based on some of the information they were getting feedbacks from union representation, whether it was Teamsters or whether it was a teachers union, is they were concerned or hearing that there was a possibility that there was bacteria or buildup of viruses in our carpets. So district-wide, we replaced all our carpets with LVT over the past 4 or 5 months, knowing that we'd have to address this issue at some point in time. So really what we're doing, we're precursoring ahead of time so we can deal with, as you would say, combating some of the queries up front before we actually had to deal with them. So the district faced that as far as looking forward to a reopening. We did some of the typical things that most districts were doing. We're looking at addressing our water issues as far as changing out all water fountains so that they were bottle access, so that when the students came back, they would, of course, not have hand access on the fountains themselves, but use bottle usage as it relates to getting water as they move from one program to another. The other thing that we were doing as we looked at this combated issue is that we went out and we exchanged out, when I say exchanged out, we looked at providing barriers for all areas of instructional. That means barriers for the desk, student desks, as well as teachers' desks, as well as all our reception areas to make sure that we provided the necessary protection for those who were encountering what we call our customers that are coming in off the streets or just internally as we work within our groups. So we were looking at all those surrounding concerns as we started to move forward. Now, the thing that was really critical for us in the upcoming months was we were hearing a lot of concerns about airflow quality in the classroom. So we went ahead again, trying to be proactive, knowing we were going to open at some point. We went ahead and commissioned that unfortunately we didn't have the staffing to do this. So we went ahead and commissioned and outsourced to a third-party vendor to change our filters out every 60 days, which turned out to be every quarter, 60 days within a quarter as it relates to the 34 school sites that we have within the district. Again, I'm sure all districts are doing this. You're not hearing anything different from Compton than the other school districts and the other facilities folks are dealing with. Again, trying to get in front of all these concerns before they become queries and questions from more so than our internal customers as well as our external customers. The other pieces that we had to deal with as far as looking at reopening now, I think Nancy brought it earlier, and I think Em might have spoken about it earlier as far as bringing back these different cohorts as we start to move forward. So I'm just going to back up a little bit. Compton in September of this school year, the district's Board of Education decided that it would bring back its special ed students, which we did in October. And also we brought our EL students back so we can make sure, again, we targeted those groups that we knew and we all knew that needed that in-person instructional piece. So again, to make sure we addressed that issue, we had to deal with the transportation part of it, which again was a challenge in itself, because now when you look at it from a funding perspective, when you're routing kids, especially on the transit buses and also on the vans, usually a van will hold up to maybe 15, 30 kids on the bus, and then your transits hold about 87. So now you're looking at separating out the seats. And now you're doing on a van, we're doing 7 students. On a transit, we're doing 24. So now we're looking at increase of cost of providing service. And also we're looking at sanitizing the buses. So there was a lot of planning and thought process that went into this as we started to move forward. Now that's just with that small cohort. Now, as of March of this year, as of this past Friday, the Board of Education has approved 2 separate cohorts to come back. We're going to have our 3rd through 6th coming back, as well as our starting, I do believe they're coming back on the 8th of next month, and then our TK2 will come back on the 15th. Again, strategizing how to get the transportation piece together, also meet all those safety requirements and all those concerns that the parents have out there as it relates to having their young ones on the bus and also being secured at the same time. So when you look at the totality of this, not only is it strategically challenging, but also as we start to move forward, I think David mentioned commented on, as we start to potentially have students come back, the cost factor is going to be tremendously impactful on school districts. And I think from a facilities point of view and as a district point of view, those are some of the challenges that we've been facing. And from a Compton perspective, seeing that we stayed on board during the whole pandemic piece and none of us left as far as the strategic teams goes, facilities, maintenance, operation, and cabinet, we were in front of this most of the time. But again, these curveballs keep coming at us every so often. So it makes it real difficult to make sure we hit the mark and also satisfy our customers externally, but also understanding we got to protect the kids and the students as our first forefront. Wait a second. I think that's all I have for you, Julie.
That's a lot, Nate. That's awesome. And I know like our district here and us in facilities planning, we have not stopped working full time at the office since last March. In fact, we've probably worked just like you did, Nate, harder than ever in trying to get things done. I listened to you changing all that carpet out. Wow, that's a lot of coordination, a lot of hard work.
Yeah, no question. And again, it's I think someone said it best. I forget who the gentleman was. He said he's been working for 20 years in his business, and it seemed like during this pandemic, he's worked 20 years plus another 15 years on top of this 1 year of the pandemic. So I definitely can understand that.
Yeah, and part of it is some of the stress too, the mental stress of having to pivot. I mean,
Yeah.
Sometimes every day we're making a change or pivoting. So it is appreciated, everyone, on the school districts that are doing all the hard work.
Yeah, no question.
And Tom Duffy does say you look younger. So you
Well,
have,
tell Tom said I appreciate it. I was getting beat up in cabinet, so I appreciate the opportunity to step out of that beat up and come over here.
that's right. You don't look a day over 30, Nate. So
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
don't you worry.
All right, then. Thanks again. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I think we've got our job exchange. And so if you have an upcoming RFQ or RFP or job opening at your district or firm, please utilize the Cash Professional Opportunities job board on our webpage to reach out to a wider, more diverse audience. Cash members can log into the Cash website and post their job or RFQ or RFP right there. So then next slide, which is our last slide. And just want to say thank you to everyone for being here today. Please mark your calendars for the next Cash monthly meeting, which is on March 24th. And it will be at 11 a.m. also. And so we appreciate all of your questions, all of your time, and we will keep investigating quite a few more things and get back to you next month. A lot of stuff happening right now going on. So have a great rest of February, and we will see you in March. Take care. Bye, everyone.